NJGSF 1987. Um, you can see notes on my blog, JGSF. I mean, I have others as well, but is on Substack, which is JGSF 1987.substack.com. You can subscribe to be there. Also on Medium, and well, again, I can go back, or shall I say, I'll also add on links into the description, which you will also below. Anyway, so as I think you've seen for the past 7 months of this current Republican fight back, no, we're here, folks. We're in fascism. The Republican Party, they don't just want to basically control the government anymore. They want to control you, your minds, your thoughts, your movements, whatever you do. You need to make it clear to them that we're not going to tolerate this. And now they're coming for your vote. I'm sure you've heard about what's going on with their little gimmick again in Texas. Again, this is not the first. Now, minor history lesson. This is not the first time Texas has done this. Last time that Texas has done a mid-decade redistricting shuffle, if you want to call it that, basically a mid-decade redistricting, was back in the 2000s under George W. Bush. I'll look into it, but I think they may have done it under Obama, but under Barack Obama, but I don't think they were quite that sneaky. No, they did it under George W. Bush. That I do remember. That was in the 2000s, not so much in the 2010s. What happened was they didn't exactly get the result they wanted after the 2002 midterm election, so they tried again. Democrats in Texas, of course, tried to protest this, but because they didn't have any backers from the rest of the country at the time, they were ultimately forced to go back to Texas with basically go back to Austin with their tails between their legs. Now, I know what you're thinking. What makes so what about this time makes it is making the Republicans think that they can succeed again? Well, they succeeded before, they're likely to do it again. Not quite. Democrats were fractured 20 years ago. They're not that fractured right now. California right now has a very different governor from 2004. 2004, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a Republican. A number of others who could have given them cover didn't do it, really, because they didn't want it. Anyway, it's the test review covering about. Okay, use your. Oh, wow, how bad I when you're pressing your elbow in my mouth. Sorry. My lady. Beautiful. Yeah, where was I? Right. So, Republicans. Here's the thing. Democrats were dealing with a slightly different dynamic back in 2004, in, in 2003 and 2004 than they are currently in 2025. Okay? Bear with me. A number of states which voted for Democrats first in 2000 and then eventually in 2004, some of them, this includes both California and New York, had Republican governors. And there were not a lot of Democratic governors who were willing to stick their necks out at the time to try to fight this, figuring that if they simply play by the rules that were basically given out at the time, they could rely on the voters to do the course correction. That calculus proved to be correct, especially in 2006. And I'm sure you remember that election. And for many of you who were born prior to, I would say, prior to the mid 1990s, yeah, you remember that election pretty dang well. I do. That was my first midterm election that I voted in. Democrats correctly rely on the voters in order to deal with that. They don't have that. That's the difference. So, what do we do now to fight this off, or at least come up with it, or at least to try to offset it? Here's the here's what think about what Gavin Newsom is doing. He's offsetting Texas by eliminating 5 seats from California, 5 Republican seats from from California's congressional delegation, especially its House delegation. This is one way to do it. Florida is likely to do this. That's going to likely be counterbalanced by either Illinois or New York, one of those two. As we continue to go on between a lot of these big states, you're going to see Democrats going to start are beginning to wake up to the fact that they need to fight fire with fire, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to show these fascist these fascistic voices that no, we're not going down this path, and we're not going down the path of a white ethno state either, because that's exactly what Donald Trump and the Republican Party, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, what do we as people do about it? Well, force the Democrats into doing what they're doing, or at least what can we do to help the Democrats out by giving them more and more leverage? Get in the streets and protest. It doesn't matter. Keep protesting. I mean, take a break for election day, obviously. You don't need to protest that. But as soon as election day ends, get back to protesting. Even if they threaten to throw you in jail. Do what John Lewis used to do back in the 1960s, which is get in good trouble. You need to show, we as a country need to show the rest of the world, we as Americans need to show the rest of the world that we're not going to passively accept what the Trump administration is doing and what these Republicans in Congress are doing. We're just not going to accept it. And we need to make that clear by protesting. So long as we keep protesting, and continue to make that case, we're going to rally the support of the rest of the world. The rest of the world is going to support us, the American public. It's not going to support the Trump administration. I agree with Robert Reich in this instance in saying that it's a regime. It is a regime. Again, I'm going to save that for a different live stream somewhere down the road. I'm not going to do it here. What I'm going to say is very simple. I'm also going to say this. If you live in the state of California, I don't care what your political affiliation is, Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated, or some other minor party, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you this as an American, first and foremost. Vote for Proposition 50. Yeah, it's going to undo something that we put in place over a decade. Has it been working? Yeah, it has. It's not allowing the legislature to quote unquote redraw maps willingly. For the most part, that's a good thing. And for the most part, I empathize with the argument against doing this. I empathize with that argument. In principle, I don't normally support this, but at time, but in a moment like this, you got to fight fire with fire. There's no other way to do it. As a result, I'm voting in favor, and I'm encouraging you to do the same. Back Gavin Newsom up. You do this, you give him the ammunition to tell the Trump administration that he is not going, that it is not going to silence your voices. And it makes it very clear that we are not going to be intimidated into thinking the way the administration wants us to. And we're not going to fall for the gaslighting either. So, without much further ado, I'm going to cut it here. I'm JGSF 1987, and I am out of here.